Hello, and welcome to our Commerce Reimagined series, highlighting the changemakers, visionaries, and the people who are transforming the way that we are defining commerce today. And we're definitely witnessing a redefinition of commerce today. So I'm extraordinarily pleased to welcome my guests to take us through this conversation. My name is Beth Ann Kamenko, and I am the Global CEO of Geometry. I'll first introduce Rachel Tipograph with the congratulations. Many of you who follow MICMAC will have seen her recent Series A funding news and just other announcements that she's been making, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'll turn it over to Arthur Sevilla, who is one of our Pinterest leaders, and we'll talk about what he's doing in that platform as it comes to reimagining commerce and also just the evolution we're seeing take place in marketing today. And one of our clients, Tanu Graywall, who is also here from Allen Company. So a great combination of guests to join me in this conversation. And really what we want to explore is a marketing evolution, but one that we didn't completely write or predict, one that's been driven by the circumstances over the last 5 to 6 months through a pandemic, through social unrest and injustice here in America, but also across the world. And a number of unforeseen forces that are combined with probably some of the more predicted forces that have led to, I think, positive change for many of us here on this call, but obviously to very challenging, trying times. The 3 guests I have today are all with businesses that are faring very well and as leaders who are truly kind of leading the way. So I would like them each to kind of talk a little bit about who they are and the roles that they are in. And then from that, start talking a little bit about how they see that role and responsibility shifting given the challenges that we've all been facing over the last 5 to 6 months. So Rachel, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. Thanks for having me again. So I'm the founder and CEO of MICMAC. We are an e-commerce marketing and insights platform for multi-channel brands. So if you're a brand where the majority of your e-commerce sales come from places like Amazon, Target, Walmart, Kroger, Drizzly, Minibar, Petco, Ulta, you name it, you'll probably become our client because you live in darkness with e-retail data. And it's been a really wild, almost 6 months during COVID. When I started the company and brought the product to market 3 years ago, the first brands to sign up were beauty brands. Fast forward to the week of March 9th, my entire customer makeup really shifted, and it began to become food brands, beverage brands, alcohol brands, home care brands, all of these brands that overnight experienced a rapid transition from going brick and mortar first to e-commerce first. And they were living in darkness with customer journey data from environments like Facebook, Pinterest, all the way down the road to Amazon, Target, Walmart. And ultimately, they're trying to figure out, how do we find customers who want to buy our product? And then how do we find way more of the people who just bought? And that's what we do day in and day out.
Arthur, over to you.
Thanks, Beth, for having me. My name is Arthur Sevilla. I'm the head of Global Vertical Strategy and Marketing at Pinterest. Pinterest is a visual discovery engine. We're here to help you navigate your interests and to inspire you to take action against those interests. Over the last 3 years, we've been navigating and seamlessly bringing people from inspiration to action. And prior to Pinterest, I spent over a decade on the brand marketing side at Kraft Foods and Mondelez. The latter part of that career was spent in emerging markets launching brands, where I really became fascinated by e-commerce, particularly e-commerce in consumables, where consumers are actually shopping for low consideration, low price point items seamlessly on their phones or on their devices. And I believe the US is finally ready to take advantage of that amazing consumer behavior. Obviously, the pandemic has accelerated that growth, but with partnerships with Geometry and MICMAC, and I'm excited for the conversation we're having today. I believe that growth is going to continue to accelerate.
Tanu, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tanu Graywall. I'm the VP of Marketing for Allen. Allen USA is the North American subsidiary of Grupo Allen. Grupo Allen is the largest family-owned home and laundry care company in Mexico. And in the US, we are one of the fastest growing cleaning and laundry products companies. So we're very psyched about that. The newest entrant to our portfolio is a brand called Art of Green. We launched it last year, mainly in response to a white space that we found where green brands were either not affordable or they didn't perform. So Art of Green is really a 98% naturally derived, non-toxic cleaning laundry products brand, which is affordable, and it delivers on all the category performance aspects as well. Apart from that, just really, I think this pandemic has accelerated the demand for products in our categories. And we at Allen take that responsibility really seriously. So we've been, providing a lot of focus on how do we make sure we get the right products in the hand of the right consumers, always keeping retailer shelves stocked. So that's been a big focus for us.
So I would love to hear what advice would you have for other brand marketers who are finding this a really challenging time? Arthur, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Let's start with the obvious, in that the last couple of months have been an unprecedented time for all of us as humans first, right? As consumers second, and then as marketers third. There are two waves that I'd love to discuss, and that's our COVID-19, our pandemic, and then our social conversation that is incredibly important. And as marketers, I think it's a time to take advantage of change. Some can kind of pull back and say, oh, what is going to happen, and I'll wait and see. And then there are other marketers that kind of lean in and take advantage of the opportunity. At Pinterest, as the home of inspiration, we're seeking to connect consumers with brands to bring their interests to life. And as a result of that, we have incredible consumer signal as to what consumers are feeling and what their needs are. And as we entered into March and April, we recognized through consumer behavior that consumers were seeking information. They were what we called in the triage and information phase. How do I stock my pantry? How do I freeze meat safely? How long does bread last? These behaviors on the platform kind of connoted the general consumer behavior that we were all feeling. What was amazing, though, is how quickly consumers moved into other areas of behavior, moving into what we call a phase of empathy and relevance. And this is where brands kind of started to resurface again. So yes, there were some brands that provided information. Some of our grocery brands talked about how their stores were open and there were cleaning, et cetera, during phase one. But phase two, during empathy and relevance, many brands emerged and said, I hear you. I understand your needs. I understand what you're seeking to achieve in these interesting times. And then I'll speak briefly as to some of our social changes that are happening. And I feel very passionate that the role of brand is actually returning, and the importance of brand is returning. The idea that brands are not only taking advantage but exerting their power via the purchasing behaviors of media is going to influence society. And I think that's an interesting shift that we're entering into. Brands are having opinions. They're shifting their priorities, their dollars, their voice, the platforms at which they are engaging consumers with. And through those choices, brands are not just delivering products and benefits, but they're forming deeper relationships. And I think that's going to continue and last for quite some time.
Tanu, over to you from a brand marketer's perspective and someone who kind of owns and grows and nurtures brand. How does this resonate with you?
So, I think for any marketer in these unprecedented times, it's really important to have that point of agility. Arthur was referring to it as well. And I think the empathy for us comes from the angle of keeping the consumer at the heart of every decision. So really keeping that pulse on what's happening in the marketplace and understanding that. I think from a marketer standpoint, internally at Allen, we've taken on that role of being a champion for the consumer. So whether it's making choices about, what's going to be put into the product innovation pipeline, what gets taken out. Really, I mean, those are the kinds of decisions that we are making, because we are the voice of that consumer, and that consumer is evolving and shifting. There's the pandemic, there's the economic crisis, there's the social crisis. So unprecedented times have really made us the champion of the consumer and the voice. So we made a lot of changes in the product innovation pipeline. We fast-tracked certain platforms because we know that's what the consumer is asking for. We were able to go out and launch, for example, hand sanitizer sprays and wipes within a very short amount of time, because we saw that that was the need of the hour. Another shift, I think, from keeping the consumer at the heart of every decision again was the shopper journey has evolved. 10 years of growth in e-commerce has happened in 3 months. And there's a lot of companies that were really, really focused on brick and mortar only, including ours. Also because, we are an emerging brand, we have a lot of growth to make even in the brick and mortar space. That being said, if the shopper is going towards e-commerce, we have to make that evolution. So that's another thing that we've been looking at very closely. We've made a lot of shifts. We've added this whole concept of end-to-end commerce into our marketing plans. Shoppers are the new point of sale. We have to be where they are, and making those changes and those shifts, and partnering with partners like MikMak and incorporating the shopper journey and how the shopper is reacting to these. I think that's really key. So that's a big focus for us, both agility and responding to consumers.
When you think about getting new signals about the consumer to help our clients with the consumer centricity, love to hear about how you are doing that and how you see this changing shopper journey forming, and then how you inform that with new tools, and also on the back end, the measurements that matter.
Yeah, to answer that and your first question, I think the biggest thing that happened from a marketing and e-commerce standpoint at the beginning of COVID is that all of a sudden marketers had to become general managers of their brand, meaning they actually deeply had to understand how the sausage gets made and care about supply chain. Because the first thing that happened was all of a sudden this frenzy within all these brands of where are we going to get inventory? And historically, there's this huge fight over the brick and mortar inventory and the e-com inventory. And it goes all the way back to how marketers are incentivized in their own comp plans. The second thing with that is that because there was a lack of inventory available for a lot of these pantry staples, and Arthur, this is where I'm going to challenge something that you said, I actually don't think that consumers give a crap about brands, because the data that we're seeing is that when the product is not available, they will happily put a competitor into their cart. And the name of the game for these behemoth CPG brands is to protect market share. And the way that you protect market share is by ensuring that your product is available. Because what's happening right now during COVID is it's not about wants anymore. It's about needs. And you need diapers right now. So if Pampers are not available, they're going to put Huggies in their cart. So going to your second question, Beth Ann, and when it comes to consumer experiences and the data that matters, from a marketer standpoint, it's such a fascinating time. I've been doing e-commerce for the last 15 years of my life. And before, what I would tell anyone is if you want to drive e-commerce sales, it starts with buying bottom of the funnel media. But today you actually don't have to do that, because consumer demand is there. All you have to do is marry your products to that consumer demand, and they will buy it. And so what you need to do from a consumer standpoint is, one, ensure that you can create frictionless shopping experiences wherever the consumer lives, whether that's Pinterest, paid search, brand.com, you name it. The second is then making sure that your product is available to protect market share. Otherwise, they're going to put a competitor into your cart. And then on the back end, it's using all of those data and insights to optimize in real time. Meaning if you're seeing tons of pent-up consumer demand in Pinterest, but you're not marrying that with a frictionless commerce experience, then you're leaving money on the table. If you constantly see that your products are out of stock at Walmart and you have no way to redirect the customer to Kroger, then you're literally losing market share. And this is the new name of the game for marketers. You do that with the added nuances of cancel culture, a social revolution, Facebook boycott. And you just need to be able to have your finger on the pulse at all times because things are moving so quickly. And, you know, where I'll agree with Arthur on the sentiment around brands is that I feel like there's less brand loyalty than ever before. However, consumers are also less forgiving than ever before. So if a brand makes a mistake, they'll write you off the same way that they'll write off a celebrity in the world that we live in now. So it's a really, really challenging time for marketers.
I'm going to agree to all the disagreeing, and I think that's an interesting time to be a marketer. For certain, particularly for required staples, you know, that which is on shelf, both physically and digitally, will be purchased. Where I think we ended is brand dollars are choiceful on where and how one interacts and engages, and consumers are acknowledging and seeing context at which brands are starting to form relationships with consumers. And I think if you agree with that context, great. If you disagree, yes, I agree with Rachel. They will be unforgiving, and that's a difference than we've seen in a few years past.
I do agree with Rachel on the product availability piece, and about marketers becoming general managers, because you're absolutely right. I mean, in a different world and in different companies, marketing is defined differently. But you know, when this whole panic buying and shelves were emptied out, it was all hands on deck within Allen to really just kind of focus on, okay, what do people want? Great, they want our product. How are we going to get all of this massive, massive demand? And we were getting calls from retailers we were not even on shelves with, right? They were calling us saying, hey, we other brands can't supply. So when that kind of stuff happens, it is really important. I mean, 44% of consumers have tried a different brand, to Rachel's earlier point. And actually 1/3 of them are saying, hey, this is actually equal or you know, better than what I was using before. So I think this is a time of great disruption. But I think it's also a time of great opportunity. So you know, we took a look at our manufacturing base, our supplier networks, and we said, what can we do differently? What choices can we make? What can we stop making? But the biggest you know, challenge for us was, how do we get our product in the hands of as many consumers as we possibly can?
Yeah, I think it's a great debate that we're having here, and one that at Geometry we're kind of at the heart of as well, because we think about, you know, what is the center of gravity? And our belief is the center of gravity is execution around commerce. So I would like now, Rachel, you to kick us off, but tease out a little bit from your perspectives, each of those individual vantage points, examples of who you think is really getting it right. Where have you seen sort of a best practice start to emerge right now from your individual vantage points?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about some of our clients right now. I think SC Johnson is a portfolio company to watch right now. They have items that are absolutely essentials for this time. But what they didn't do is they didn't newsjack, right? They didn't update marketing to communicate how their products can help with COVID. They were way more sensitive, and they were able to communicate product benefits in a way that wasn't newsjacking in an inappropriate way. They then reallocated media spend to more emerging SKUs that people might not be aware of. Because what's happening right now, we're seeing this across the board in North America, is the legacy brands like Hershey's chocolate. Like, everyone right now has nostalgia and they'll go to those first. But it's really hard for new SKUs and new brands to gain adoption, because you don't have the discovery in a physical world right now. So it is more pay to play. So then they reallocated there. And then they took their brand dollars and they used those for social impact. So they took their entire brand marketing spend and invested it in local community projects and the safety of their workers. And they're telling all those stories. And so when I think about the 360 approach that they're taking right now to their portfolio, I absolutely think that it's one to watch.
Excellent. Tanu, what's an example from your vantage point?
I think From a communication standpoint, I recently saw the Barilla rooftop match with Roger Federer. I thought that was very contextual. And, yes, there's a little bit of pasta in that ad in the end because they're Barilla and they have to do that. But I think most of the focus was on how are real people reacting to and coping with, lockdowns and quarantines and really bringing hope. I think hope is something that is so needed in the times we live in, and that just seeing that ad brought a smile to my face, kind of brought that positivity out. So I think I really liked that. But just going back to what should you do, and I think as from an internal Allen standpoint, we put a pause to all of our social media for the first 2-3 months because we didn't want to do the newsjacking. We didn't want to come across as patronizing. We actually didn't know what was the right thing to say. So we thought pausing was the right thing to do. And so as a result of that, we have been able to supply product when others couldn't. And I think that's, again, going back to that responsibility of having a cleaner, more sustainable world. We really took that very, very seriously. And now you can find us on shelves at Target and Sprouts. And as an emerging brand, we're really proud of that. That's a big deal for us. So I think going back to, the basics, getting product that people need in their hands at the right time.
Arthur, how about you from a social and brand perspective?
Yeah, thank you. And if I can just start and maybe make a slight pivot on the word socials. Unlike other digital platforms where people are connecting with people and being social, Pinterest is actually personal media. So we do not define ourselves, although we are sometimes in social media buckets from a media execution standpoint placed there. We're very much a personal media platform. Your individual interests curates the content you'll see. And our journey is to help inspire you to take action off of that content and bring those interests to life. So it's a little bit more of a personal journey. As we've looked through the last couple of months, a couple of examples just to highlight, and they go back into the buckets of relevancy, and I'm going to introduce optimism. I don't know about you, but if you didn't bake during COVID, did you really live COVID, right? So we saw just the trending of baking and gardening explode on our platform. McCormick was informed of many of these trends and very quickly pivoted to take advantage of introducing some of their products into that baking culture and maybe even spice up some of the staples of kind of that chicken dinner that you might be on the 8th round or 10th round of feeding your family. So I lean to McCormick on taking advantage of insights, consumer behavior, consumer need, and very quickly pivoting to bring forth creative that was relevant and impactful. And then, of course, in this world, shoppable, right? All of those products and ideas were placed into a retailer cart with 1 or 2 clicks.
Well, I think people do sometimes put you in that social media category. So talk a little bit more about that sense and how you came to that definition around personal media.
Yeah, I mean, the corpus of Pinterest is you as an individual have interests and passions. We present content mostly from brands, but organically deliver through algorithmic understanding of what you're interested in, content that then you take advantage of and you save to boards for a curation of your own self. You're pinning your interests. That's the basis of Pinterest. Now, of course, there is connection and social aspects to the Pinterest experience. We are in 2020 very much focused on expanding our audience beyond just the pinner community and the advertiser community. We're now entering into the creator community because we believe that inspiration is the new influence.
Great to hear how you're defining around that experience. So to wrap it up, I want to get to a final area that I want to explore with each of you, because we're all leaders. We run either businesses or teams, as well as the work that we do in the industry. And we've, as part of these changes, been experiencing how to kind of navigate and manage differently, having to make some really hard choices and think about the future of our business, as well as the future of how we operate within our business, the future of our work. So I'd like to start with you, Tanu, and just explore a little bit about how you're coming to those decisions. What are some of those decisions, if you're okay sharing, and a bit of how you see the future playing out?
You know, I think the couple of things that we're looking at, right, is you know, how the demand spikes are going to happen. How many of these, you know, when is the vaccine coming out? How many people are going to take the vaccine between now and then? Is it going to look like a V or a jagged W or whatever it is? And how do we get ready from a you know, production capability standpoint, right? If we go out and build lots of production capacity today to supply the spike we're seeing, what if that goes away and, you know, we're left with a lot of, you know, capex we put in. So those are really tough decisions that we're having to make. And it's almost like a daily, you know, conversation, and marketing is as hands-on into it because we need to be there. We need to sort of represent the shopper, the consumer in that voice. And so that's one really, really big, you know, opportunity and a challenge for us. And then I think, you know, we've all kind of had this abrupt change of one day we were all working in offices, and the other day we were all working, you know, out of our homes, and I had to jerry rig a table into my bedroom and work from here. And, you know, and I think lots of people had, you know, on my team had young kids, and, you know, they suddenly had really young children, spouses were loud and things like that. And so how do you as a leader react to that? How do you bring that empathy to say, you know, these are real people, this is a human time, this is a crisis, and we all have to kind of band together to be able to support each other. And, you know, we've historically been, you know, a conservative company, but I think for us to be able to make that shift was phenomenal. And we're having a lot of conversations about the future, about you know, whether do we go back fully? When do we go back? And when eventually everything returns to normal, what does that normal look like? Is it some kind of a hybrid? Because we want to make sure that, you know, we have an amazing culture and we don't want to give that up. But does remote working, do you have to make a choice between remote working and having a culture? How do you sort of amalgamate both of them? Those are really big issues for us. And I think thirdly, the other big thing is sustainability. You know, we've all seen this huge spike in you know, single-use plastic, the PPE and all of that. And I think people are struggling with it. And we've always prided ourselves on being this, you know, 100% of our bottles, PET bottles, are recycled. We've been recycling since the 1990s. So what is our role in that new normal? How do we bring out that space? How do we push the boundaries in this new normal that we're living in, where we do need that single-use plastic? At the same time, you know, what do we do to sort of offset that? So those are the conversations we've been having internally.
I think one of the benefits we're all seeing from this terrible virus is the fact that our planet is responding with a bit less travel and a bit less of our normal behaviors, taking its toll. So Rachel, over to you to kind of talk about it from your perspective.
Yeah, you know, we're a fast-growing startup. Our business has doubled in size since the beginning of COVID, so it's been wild to scale a company remotely. But we've taken it a step further, and we've decided to go fully remote. It's an announcement I made in the beginning of July to the company. And the reason being is our headquarters is currently in Manhattan. We have working parents, we have people living in New Jersey, Connecticut, 5 boroughs, people with compromised immune systems. It's just so much to navigate, and we've proven that we can be quite successful working in the cloud, which is also a privilege. That's not a case for everyone. I've done a lot of thought thinking about culture, because I used to be someone who was very proud about our company culture and how we always hung out and everyone always wore Micmac stuff and people sweat Micmac.
Space. I'm thinking about your space, like how, you know.
And yeah, I was obsessed with our office. Yeah. But I realized none of that is culture. I believe that culture is how you treat your employees. So at a leadership level, how do you treat your employees? And then how do your employees act? The actions that people take make up your company culture, meaning how do you make decisions? What makes good work? How do you talk to clients? And the reality is, in a remote world, the big change is that you move from synchronous work to asynchronous work. And when it comes to how you judge an employee, It's actually about the work. Because in a remote world, it's not as important that the person is funny or likable. It's really like, do you do high quality work, and do you do your work on time, layered by do people enjoy working with you? And it's a mindset shift. And I believe that you can't try to recreate what you had in the physical world. You have to absolutely build something new. And my message to the company was, we got out of our expensive Soho lease, and I'm taking all that money and I'm investing it in professional development for the employees. And I do believe one day we'll have a physical presence again, but it's not going to be an office that has 250 desks. I see it as an event space for, team kickoffs and big sprints, maybe a important client meeting, all company gatherings that happen a few times a year. And the reality is, like, some of the biggest companies in the world have been operating like this, like IBM and Accenture, and the new luxury is having ownership over your own time and where you want to work. So yeah, I mean, it's been a mindset shift for me. I wake up some days and I mourn what once was, but I know that we can't turn back the clock.
Yeah, it sounds like the Convene model too. I don't know if you're familiar with Convene out of New York, with that kind of space. Well, we'll be watching you with fascination, because you really have kind of taken a leadership role and decision making in making the moves that you have made. Arthur, what about you, and how is Pinterest and you and your own team responding?
This has been a hard journey, but one that we've embraced at Pinterest. The future of work is something that is top of mind for us, and we've made some decisions. One, we're very proud of how we've been able to maintain business momentum, respond, and at times even increase the velocity at which we are engaging with our customer base, with our advertisers. We're opening up our engineering, hiring, and building teams outside of what we now have as a San Francisco and Seattle hub. So that will really avail access to a plethora of talent that we might not have otherwise. So we haven't gone all the way to Rachel's decision, but we have just recently made the announcement that we will be fully remote through the end of August 2021, which is over a year now. Now, of course, some of our offices may be open and we might be using that space selectively for certain groups. And of course, there's fringe cases, but a requirement to enter into an office, we won't have that until at least over a year. And that, again, I think what's important to kind of call attention to was we've made that through the lens of many of our employees being working parents, and we navigated through a child's school year.
Yeah, very smart. I'll just add very quickly from our perspective, not speaking for WPP, but when you think about the size of WPP and sort of that creative collaboration at the heart, it was really hard for us to imagine how this was going to be a sustainable way of working. But with, Miro and other kinds of collaborative boards and spaces now, it's just amazing what we can get accomplished. So thank goodness technology is here to meet us with the needs that we have. And certainly the boundaries that have come down, the ability to work globally and to work with teams that come from anywhere has just been significant and a transformation for how I think we all approach our work. So I want to end just very quickly. We don't have a lot of time, but I kind of want that one word from each of you. Maybe one word kind of representing how you've seen these, have felt and experienced these last 5 or 6 months, and maybe that one word that you are looking forward with. So that's sort of your North Star when you think about your own personal rally cry. Arthur, can I put you on the spot and start with you?
Yeah, wasn't part of the pre-read. I'm going to go to adaptable and optimistic. I believe consumers will navigate through change. I believe brands and platforms will help them if they put consumers' interest first. And I believe that despite negativity, and don't get me wrong, I believe there's more negativity to come in the coming months, particularly in the US market. I believe beyond that, we will emerge as an optimistic society, as an optimistic industry, and brands that recognize that they have an opportunity to redefine their voice, serve with relevancy, seamlessly enable a commerce experience, and lead with inspiration are going to succeed. So tomorrow's bright.
Well, optimistic is one of our words too, so I'll take that. Tanu?
So I'm going to go with 2 words. I think one is never let a good crisis go to waste. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to really understand, how consumers' shifts and respond to them and really make those longer lasting, more deeper connections with them. And the other one is growth. I think growth from a business standpoint is one, but from a personal standpoint is another one. I mean, I look at what we all had to go through in the last weeks of March, and as leaders, there's a lot of responsibility we have for our teams. So immense amount of growth that has already happened. And I think that there is the opportunity for even more growth in the next few months.
And Rachel?
Accelerate, to describe right now, over the past 6 months, and for the future, empowering. I believe that to really operate in this remote world, you have to remove as many roadblocks as humanly possible and empower your employees to do more. And if they fail, they fail, but there's no room for roadblocks right now.
Wow. Well, thank you, all 3 of you, very much for joining us on the Commerce Reimagined series this morning or today, whatever time it is that you're all joining and watching. And again, let's keep reimagining the space that we're all working in right now and lead the way for us. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.